You are listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast exploring Scripture and all things related to it. New episodes are released daily. For more information, check out glossahouse.com and subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube. Welcome and enjoy.
Shalom, and welcome to this episode of SLA Insights. My name is Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and I want to welcome you. We're continuing a discussion on reading and reading in a foreign language. And last week, I introduced the idea of working memory and told you that this is going to be significant for how we understand reading, and it plays a significant role in reading. And so I talked about, just as a brief review, on one end of the spectrum, we have sensory memory, which is very short, quick, here and gone, related to your five senses. On the other end of the spectrum, we have long-term memory, which is more, or the closest we get to permanent memory. But in the middle, we have working memory. Some people call it short-term memory. And this is where the reading takes place, where the function of reading becomes very important. The human memory, the short-term working memory, has the phonological loop dealing with auditory input, the visuospatial sketchpad dealing with visual input, and central command that kind of controls everything and keeps it working. This week, I want to focus specifically on the phonological loop because it's what is most important for reading. And I talked last week how we might expect that the visuospatial sketchpad, in other words, the visual input, would be influential in our reading and important for helping us read, but it's actually the phonological loop. And so even though it's the auditory component of working memory, it is the most important of those three elements for understanding reading, and that includes silent reading. That's because the phonological loop decodes and stores written words in phonological form for future storage, rehearsal, usage, whatever it is. So if we're looking at reading, we're talking about silent reading. Even silent reading is sub-vocalization. In other words, we are hearing the words in our head even though we're not speaking them out loud. So that information is converted into auditory form as it's worked with in working memory or stored. And so all language information used in working memory is stored and rehearsed phonologically, even if it comes through silent reading. Also, the phonological loop is directly connected with the storage, rehearsal, and reinforcement of new words, in phonological form. And so it's very closely related with vocabulary learning. And so reading fluency is highly dependent on the phonological loop. However, like the rest of working memory, phonological loop has some limitations. It will only store information, phonological information, for a few seconds, unless that's refreshed through subvocalization or rehearsal, inner speech, that kind of a thing. You can make it stay longer, but otherwise a few seconds and it's gone. And so this is one of the reasons that rapid word recognition and rapid reading rate are very important for reading fluency. Put differently, we're going to put this in the words taking from Grabe and his work on reading in a second language. He says, fluency, and especially automaticity, allows readers to attend to the meaning of the text, the textual context, and required background knowledge without being slowed down by attentional word recognition demands. In other words, in order to read well, in order to comprehend well, you have to read quickly. That's the idea. You want to be able to get to the end of the sentence before your working memory, the phonological loop, runs out, because you only get a few seconds. And so students need to be able to read texts quickly so that he or she, whoever's reading it, can reach the end of the sentence before the phonological loop runs out. And if they can do that, then they can comprehend the sentence. And if they can comprehend it, they can acquire it. And because again, acquisition is a byproduct of comprehension. When a student has to stop, look up an unknown word or a form or a syntactic construction, he or she is going to lose what has been stored in the phonological loop. They can look it up, come back to the sentence, but then they're going to have to start again at the beginning and reconstruct the meaning that they had been working on all along till they had to stop and look up that unknown word. So a couple recommendations, and I'm going to expand on this in future episodes, but the first thing is students need to be able to understand 95 to 98% of the words they are reading. If they can't understand that, it's going to slow them down. They're not going to be able to comprehend the sentence. Their phonological loop is going to run out. The research in SLA has repeatedly reinforced this 95 to 98% rule. If they can understand 95 to 98% of the running words in a text, they can comprehend it, which means they can acquire it. They can also guess at the meaning of the 2 to 5% that they don't understand and make some logical guesses and actually acquire vocabulary in the process of reading. If it's more than that, they're stuck. They don't comprehend it, they don't acquire it, they can't guess from context what those words mean. And so the goal then is to get them text they can read at that 95 to 98%. Students need simplified text, which means maybe new text from scratch, maybe diglot weaves. And again, in future episodes, I'm going to look at some of these examples of how to simplify text for reading to get it in that 95 to 98% goal. Now, there's some potential objection. I can hear it already. People saying, well, once my student translates the sentence, then he or she does comprehend it. Well, I'm going to come back with, do they really comprehend the L2, or are they comprehending it in their native language, in English, if that's your native language? More likely, he or she is actually comprehending it from the translation, not from the original. How many of us, myself included, have translated a sentence and then gone back to read it in the original? Not very often. I don't. Usually I translate, I'm like, okay, I got it, I'm done. I don't go back and read the original once having translated. I assume, well, I've translated it so I comprehend it. But that's not the same thing. If you can't acquire the language without comprehending. And so if I'm comprehending it in English, that's great, but that's not helping me acquire the Hebrew, Greek, Latin, whatever it is that I'm translating. And so we need to get to the point of being able to read the text, to read them fluently, to read them quickly. It sounds counterintuitive, but fast reading actually promotes comprehension because of the limitations of the phonological loop. So by quick review, the phonological loop is the part of working memory that we really need for reading fluency. And again, all language information used in working memory is stored and rehearsed phonologically, even silent reading. And so the phonological loop is essential for developing reading comprehension, and ultimately acquisition. But the phonological loop is limited. It's limited to only a few seconds. So we need to give our students texts that are simple enough that they can get to the end of the sentence, get the full meaning before that phonological loop runs out. We want the students to be able to acquire because acquisition is a byproduct of comprehension. So in upcoming episodes, I'm going to talk about some different things. One is ways to help our students read faster, to promote reading fluency, fast reading so they can comprehend, and also ways to simplify the text we have to help them be able to read faster just because they know the words already. They're in that 95 to 98% coverage for reading fluency. So I hope you can join me for some of these upcoming episodes as we talk about reading fluency. And in the meantime, have a great week.
Kjære Pante, zegoi mi iese ke tutestin Zone Hellenisti. Hello everyone, I am Jesse Orloff and this is Living in Greek. Σήμερον θέλω αναγνώσκην το ύστερον κεφαλαίον τες πρώτες επιστολές του Πέτρου. Νιούνται δείκνυμοι ημίν την περιοχήν. Καλώς. Πρεσβυτερούς ουν εν ημίν παρακαλώ, ως ιουν πρεσβυτερός και μάρτυους των του Χριστού παθεμάτων, οκε τες μελούσες αποκαλύπτεστε δόξες κοινωνός ποιημάνετε το εν ημίν ποιμνιον του Θεού, επισκοπούντες με αναγκαστός, αλλά εκουσίως κατά Θεόν. Με δε εσκροκερδός, αλλά προθύμος, με δος κατακυριεύοντες των κλέρων, αλλά τύπιου γινόμενιου του ποιμνίου. Και φανερωθέντος του αρχιποιούμενος κομιήστε των αμαράντινων τες δόξες Στέφανον, ομοίως νεότεροιου υποτάγεται πρεσβυτέριους, πάντες δε αλλέλιους τεν ταπεινοφροσύνην εγκομβόσαστε, ότι ο Θεός υπερεφάνιους αντιτάσσεται, ταπεινείς δε δίδωσιν χάριν. Ταπεινώθετε ουν υπό την κρατεάν χείρα του Θεού, είναι ημάς υψώθε εν καιρό. Πάσαν την μερίμναν ημών επιρρύψαντες επ' αυτόν, ότι αυτό μέλει περί ημών. Νέψατε, γρηγορέσατε, ο αντίδικος ημών διάβολος, ως λέον οριούμενος, περιπατεί ζητών τίνα καταποιήν. Ο αντίσταται στερείου τε πίστη, ειδότες τα αυτά των παθεμάτων τε εν το κόσμο, ημών αδελφότατη επιτελείστε. Ω δε Θεός πάσης χαριτός, ο καλέσας ημάς εις τεν αιώνιον αυτού δόξαν εν Χριστώ, ο λίγον παθώντας αυτός καταρτήσει, στηρίξει, στενώσει, θεμελιώσει. Αυτό το κράτος εις τους αιώνας των αιώνων. Αμέν. Διά Σιλωανού ημίν του πιστού αδελφού, ως λογίζομαι, διολίγων έγραψα, παρακαλών και επιμαρτυρών ταύτην είναι αληθέ χάριν του Θεού, εις εν στέτε. Ασπάζετε ημάς εν Βαβυλώνη συνεκλεκτέ και Μάρκος ο Υιός μου. Ασπάσαστε αλλήλους εν φιλέματι αγάπες ειρήνε ημίν πάσιν τους εν Χριστώ. Καλώς. Ο Πέτρος όδε δίδωσιν παράκλησιν τους πρεσβυτέριους και ατέκε τους νεότερους. Οι πρεσβυτέριοι κρέαν έχουσιν ποιμανήν το ποιμνίον του Θεού. Επισκοπούντες με αναγκαστός αλλά εκουσίως κατά Θεόν. Με δε έσχροκερδός αλλά προθύμος. Με δος κατακυριεύοντες των κλέρων αλλά τύπιου γινόμενιου του ποιμνίου. Ιου πρεσβύτεριου κρέαν έχουσιν γίνεστε τύπιου του ποιμνίου. Ναι. Ιου δε νεότεριου κρέαν έχουσιν υποτάσιν πρεσβυterius. Ναι. Και πάντες κρέαν έχουσιν εγκομβόσαστε την ταπεινοφροσύνην αλλέλιους. Εν ταύτε τε περιοχέ εστιν στίχος ο τέρπομε. Πού εστιν? Ναι. Στίχος 7. Πάσαν την μέριμναν ημών επιρρύψαντες επ' αυτόν, ότι αυτό μέλει περί ημών. Εγώ μιμνέσκω τούτο το στίχο, ότι Χριστός εστιν, ευχριστός εστιν, ούτως ο στίχος. Ναι. Εν το κόσμο τούτο εστιν πολλέ μέριμνε. Ναι, πολλέ μέριμνε. Εισήν εν το κόσμο τούτο. Και δύσκολος εστιν ζαν ενιότα. Δύσκολος εστιν ζαν. Πολλέ μερίμνε εισήν. Αλλά ούτως ο στίχος λέγει ότι κρέαν έχομεν. Πάσαν την μερίμναν εμών επιρρύψαντες επ' αυτόν. Διότι το Θεό μέλει περί εμών. Το Θεό μέλει περί εμών. Το Θεό μέλει περί σου. Το Θεό μέλει περί σου. Το Θεό μέλει περί εμού. Ευλογία εστιν. Ευλογία εστιν. Καλώς, θαυμαστός εστιν. Νυν δε, τούτ εστιν το τέλος. Τούτ εστιν το τέλος τες πρώτες επιστολές του Πέτρου. Εγώ ελπίζω ότι χαίρετε περί ταύτην την περιοχήν. Περί ταύτες τις περιοχές. Περί ταύτες tes epistoles, tu Petru. Ninde eroste.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glossa House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.